Hey, what's going on, my lovely, lovely people? It's the Mad Hatter logging back in, reporting live from the abyss. And as always, thanks for joining me on yet another episode. This go around, I want to talk about Attorney General Jeff Sessions and the news that he's bringing back harsher charging and sentencing policies when it comes to drugs. So the mentality is that because of this, he's bringing back the war on drugs. And, you know, I'm going to have to disagree with that. Um, Basically what he's doing is he's repealing or he's drawing back a lot of the provisions the Obama administration did when it came to lowering those sentences for high-level drug offenders, and they're just bringing it back. Now, the move that Obama did, you can argue that it might have been, Obama and Eric Holder. You can make an argument that it might have been a move in the right direction toward removing, making sure the prisons aren't overpopulated, and making sure that the war on drugs is not adversely affecting people of color and people who are of marginalized groups. But I have to say, when it comes to hard drugs, like, it's a serious offense, man, when you're pushing massive amounts of drugs to communities. As black people, I'm very against the war on drugs. I was against how the drugs came into the U.S., the whole Iran-Contra war. You can look into that and how the, cocaine got into the U.S. I'm not going to get into that. But I was against that because of how it adversely affected people of color. So I can't sit here and get mad at Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump and his administration for wanting to crack down on that and those large shipments of drugs. Now, we'll see how that actually works, once it's enacted. But I can't be mad at them for wanting to make sure that those drugs don't get into those communities. And as black people, I feel as though this is one thing that we should support them on. And I see a lot of black people kind of fighting against that, thinking that, this is going to bring back the war on drugs, this and this and this. But even if black people are selling drugs and people of color are selling drugs, we shouldn't be doing that. I mean, that's just the basics of it, is that we should not be doing that. So if you're mad at this harsher sentencing, well, that's just tough, because at the end of the day, black people should not be selling drugs to other black people like that, and harming our own neighborhoods. Even though we do know that these drugs don't come from those neighborhoods, that those drugs don't come from other black people and other people of color in the United States. It comes from the outside, and a lot of that has to do with the government and the role that the government plays in this international drug trade. But however, we should be punishing people who are bringing in pounds and pounds of drugs, and that's exactly what Jeff Sessions wants to do. Now, I don't agree with a lot of things that he does and that he says, but in terms of what he's doing, he even said, or justice officials have said, that they're not going after low-level drug offenders. They're only going after people. If you are a low-level drug offender, if you're linked to firearms, gang membership, or other aggravated crimes, as reported by the USA Today. They're going after, for instance, a 10-year what they're going to do is give a 10-year mandatory minimum sentence to people caught in cases where people were in possession of 1 kilogram of heroin, 5 kilograms of cocaine, and 1,000 kilograms of marijuana. So that's what they're doing, and they're gonna put people back in jail and prison, for those high level crimes. And I don't really see too much of a problem with that, to be honest. Now, I do agree that we do have to look into the overall prison population in the U.S., and I think that we are doing that. Like I said earlier, this administration and the justice officials just said that they're not going to go after low-level drug offenders. Now, one of the other caveats about this is that he wants to go after people who have repeatedly crossed the border illegally. And in the past, it was a misdemeanor, but now he wants to move that to be a felony, which, again, I can't really have a problem with that, because if you continuously break the law, that should be a felony. And usually the people who are doing that are what you refer to as coyotes. And these coyotes are the people who are harming people of color and Latinos and Mexicans crossing the border more than anything else. I mean, you can make the argument that yes, You know, the people sending them, the Americans sending the people back are going to harm those people, but those people are making the decision to cross the border. Mexico is not doing anything about it. And more than anything, the coyotes are the ones who are harming those people more than anybody else. So if we can go after these coyotes, I have no problem going after these fuckers. Now, again, to wrap this up, I'm not a big fan of Jeff Sessions, but you know he was a part of the whole harsh when he was in Alabama as a congressman, I believe. He was a part of the whole harsh sentencing against people of color for crack. But when people brought that up to him, he did take that in, and he looked into that, and he was a part of pushing for policy that separated or that closed the gap between the super harsh sentencing of people caught with crack cocaine versus the super harsh sentencing of people who were caught or using cocaine. Because the whole thing was that cocaine is associated with, you know, a higher socioeconomic class, and crack is associated with the lower. So there was a racial discrepancy there, and he was aware of that. Well, people made him aware of that, and he did what he could to try to limit that gap, to close that gap. So overall, what I have to say is that there's a lot of hysteria going on about this. The war on drugs has just gotten ramped up, and I have to say I disagree with that. I think what they're doing is a positive step in the right direction, and that's where I want to leave that. So let me know what you guys think, and as always, stay woke, my friends.